Iran is apparently on the threshold of nuclear capability, according to the IAEA. Now, you hear a lot of warnings about Iran, usually coming from neoconservatives in the United States. I discount those almost entirely. I've been hearing that nonsense for a long, long time. Then our own intelligence came out and said that isn't true. But the IAEA is significantly more credible. It is, of course, the International Atomic Energy Agency. They have credibility partly because they got it right in Iraq and in other places where they warned the United States that there was not enough evidence. And so the fact that they are now coming out and saying that Iran has apparently worked with other countries to advance their capabilities, that they are not ready yet to make nuclear weapons, but they are assembling all the parts so that they can put them together, have the technology, and be able to compose it fairly quickly after that, and that they have worked with other countries such as former Soviet nuclear experts, who are, of course, now Russians, and then also, and I could tell you before I even read the article, of course, the Pakistanis and the North Koreans. Abdul Qadir Khan, which is the main who's the main nuclear expert in Pakistan, has spread nuclear expertise throughout the world to some of the most, bad acting governments. Now, I don't say that lightly about Iran. I say that about Iran because their government stole the election. They don't really represent the people of Iran. And so this is a very bad turn of events. Of course, it will be seized by the conservatives here in the United States and in Israel to say, we got to go, we got to go, we got to attack right away. In fact, that is exactly what's happening even before the report comes out. So apparently Bibi Netanyahu and the defense minister Ehud Barak in Israel are making the argument to military and intelligence officials that they need to go, whether they need to do it by themselves or in partnership or without partnership, as Ehud Barak says, and go and do a strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Apparently, the military and intelligence officials inside Israel are not as sold, and they need to be further convinced, and they are not on board yet, which is a good sign. Shimon Peres, former leader of Israel, who's more left-leaning, says that it might be imminent, but he is also against it. So there is a split in Israel, and here in the United States, usually as Israel goes, we go, and that is very, very concerning. So, of course, here in the United States, the pressure must also be ratcheted up. So who do you bring in? You bring in a former Democrat to make it seem bipartisan. Where do you do it? Of course, you do it on Fox News. Here's Evan Bayh, who gets paid to spout whatever is going to make the defense industry, the oil industry, the financial industry, and Fox News rich. So let's watch.
Here, number one, from a technical standpoint, the Israelis may be able to launch a one-off strike on Iran, but they don't have the ability for the kind of sustained bombing campaign that it would really take to degrade their nuclear arsenal, particularly this new site that's buried in a mountain. The odds of hitting that on a single strike just aren't very high. You'd have to bomb them for several weeks in a row. There's only one country that has that kind of capability. That's the United States.
It's only the United States, so what are we going to do? We got to go. You see, if Israel is going to act irrationally and do something that even their military and intelligence is not in favor of right now because it might wildly destabilize the region, we should do it for them. You see the logic? Well, let's let him keep explaining.
Number two, for us, this raises, for the Israelis, it is an existential question. For us, it raises the issue, is the Iranian state a normal nation state that's belligerent and does things we don't like, but ultimately is not suicidal and could be deterred? Or are they really a suicidal theocracy that might actually use nuclear weapons, even if it meant a nuclear retaliation against them?
And former member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, what's your view on that?
I think that the odds are that they are not a suicidal theocracy, but the question is, if you're Israel, can you afford to run that risk? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, they're probably not a suicidal theocracy, but let's pretend they are. And let's bomb them to oblivion. Let's destroy their facilities and cause a war, even though we don't think they are going to pose a threat. But just on the off chance that they might at some point pose a threat and be crazy, even though we don't think they are, let's do it anyway. Because that makes us sane. You see how sane we are? We start wars on likelihoods that we don't even think are reality. That's terrific. I'm really heartened by that. Evan Bayh, tell me why we need more war.
Even if you work your way through that analysis, the Saudis are not going to sit idly by with a nuclear Iran. They are going to immediately seek nuclear weapons, which sets off an arms race throughout the Middle East, which means for us, it may be better to try and stop that before it gets started by using limited force to prevent Iran from going nuclear when it gets right down to it.
Do you see any sign, though, getting to Paul's point, that the Obama administration, worried about oil markets, worried about the world economy, is prepared for all the blowback of a military action, and as you said, a sustained military action against Iran?
Not at this moment. I think they're trying to defer the moment of reckoning. The Chinese, the Russians are difficult, but ultimately the day of reckoning will come, Chris, ourselves. Is a nuclear Iran acceptable? If the answer to that for any of the foregoing reasons is no, there's really only one way to keep that from coming about, and that's the use of force.
We must do use of force. There's no other way. There's no other way. The day of reckoning is coming. Day of reckoning is coming, just like it was in Iraq. We've got to act right away. You know, I know the Chinese and the Russians are against it. And by the way, Haaretz, a paper in Israel, is reporting that the majority of the 15 members of Israel's security cabinet are also against it. But it doesn't matter. The right wing of the U.S. and the right wing of Israel can combine to cause this war anyway. He says it'll be limited force, except for the fact that it will be sustained and much greater than what Israel can do by themselves when we launch basically a war against Iran. And he says, well, the reason we have to do that because in the Middle East there might be an arms race otherwise. So there might be an arms race where they don't use the arms. Hence, let's use our arms to prevent that theoretical arms race later. Let's bomb them into oblivion and start the war on the off chance that there might later be a war with weapons they don't yet have. Well, that's right-wing logic for you, because you know why? War gets people paid, man. You think that Evan Bayh is concerned about people living in Israel and thinks Iran is really going to make a weapon and then launch that weapon and thereby risking the 70 million people living in Iran, including the leaders of Iran who would make that decision? Because everybody knows Israel would retaliate. Everybody knows the United States would retaliate. He doesn't think that. He thinks, give me the money.